Okay, so let's go for it because I think we need to be careful with timing. Remember that the webinar is being recorded, so please keep your microphones mute. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll open microphones and we open the dialogue. Let me go through the presentation. Will take me maybe 35, 40 minutes, more than that. Then we open the conversation and the piece will be recorded and will be our third webinar for our community of practitioners. So let's go for it. My name is Antonio Rivas. I'm the director of Federation Experiment in Living, as you may know by now. And this is our third webinar in our community of practitioners. And I was just collecting my thoughts on my experience. I've been traveling through maybe 15, 17 countries, and I want to share my experience. But at the same time, I want to be faithful to the wisdom that the Federation has been collecting through all these many years. So I went through different books with Albino Fantini and reading many documents. So this is the final, not the final result, but this is one of the products of all this thinking, right? And I feel like being in family. So at the end, we'll open the dialogue and have some conversation about my thoughts, my reflections, and these kind of things. So what's the index? We will talk about making connections. Intercultural communication skills probably are the results of world vision, cultural approach, and language knowledge. When we collect all these three ingredients, we may talk about intercultural communication skills. So we'll get a little in-depth into each of these concepts, world, culture, and language. And then from my own experience, and of course, open to dialogue, the do's and don'ts I would like to share with you, and the do's and don'ts maybe we want to share with some of the participants, students, families that we work with. And finally, some reflection about key performance indicators. We need to measure the impact of what we do. We're working in global education. We want to change things. If we don't measure, how do we know if it's working? Because one thing is moving people around, the other thing completely different is measuring the impact of moving these people around. So little by little, let's go into it. Let's begin by making this connection, world, culture, and language. So intercultural communication skills, it requires to open your eyes and to challenge some point of views. As I said before, travel the world and understanding the world are two different things, and you probably know. So many people have moved around understanding very little, very little. The other way around, some people just move not so much, but they really get a bigger picture. So the first thing we need from my point of view is to challenge your point of view, to challenge some wisdoms you think you have. And probably all of us agree that the map on the left, it's upside down, and the map on the right make us feel comfortable. It's more familiar. It's the correct one. But why is this? This is because this is a convention. We all agree that this is how we see the world. And it's very convenient for us, for me, I'm from Spain, right in the middle of everything, very Eurocentric. And when you have this image of the world in your mind, when you travel, obviously you move to the periphery. It's like you visit some people that they are not in the center of everything. You are in the center. And that's a position that gives a lot of information, and it's you don't move out of there, it's difficult to understand anything. You may visit people, but it's not clear that you will understand things. So the first thing it needs to be done is to challenge your point of view or to understand all the prejudices you have, all the images you have been educated into, and to challenge them. And why we need to do that? Because when you challenge your point of view, you're capable of understanding global problems. And that's very important in order to develop intercultural communication skills. We mean to understand global problems, to change things, and to find global answers. That's why we need to communicate with the world, because we need to come up with new solutions, taking into considerations different cultures, different situations. Otherwise, we are just moving people, and it looks like tourism, which is not bad, but maybe we can go beyond that mission. That's not our mission. Our mission is building uh, bridges, understanding, and peace. And in order to build anything, understanding is basic. And understanding global problems to produce global answers, it's essential. And then we can talk about them. And I collect three global problems: inequality, climate change, and pandemics. Right? When you have this picture into your mind, your approach to countries are quite different. It's amazing how this is GDP in 2015, so it has moved a little bit. It has gone even wrong. Uh, when you have this picture in your mind and you travel the world, the ideas you have, the framework you have in your mind, it changes completely. You are capable of understanding more because you understand the situation of different countries, of different people. So inequality is one of the things we need to face, we need to challenge. And one of the reasons we build conversations across cultures. But to begin the conversation, we need to agree whether this is a problem or this is a good vision, right? And this is another quite common, even though some people are still arguing against this, right? Climate change. I'm from Spain. Look at this Sevilla. It's 42 degrees. It's not now, but it will be in a few weeks. Madrid, now it's already over 30 degrees, and pretty much the same in Shanghai. Funny thing, well, there's nothing funny about it, is that countries that suffer more uh, not always are the ones that pollute more. Sometimes many countries pollute a lot, but they don't suffer the consequences as much as some other countries. That's something we need to keep in mind when we travel this global problem as well, because this is going to be one of the main problems we need to address, right? And then what about pandemics? We all have in our experience the last pandemic. And it was amazing how the world organized to some extent to find a global answer. That's the intention of intercultural communication skills, to get the skills, the abilities to collect thoughts, ideas from very many different places and being able to produce global answers. Anything that happens to you at a local level belongs to some major problem at a global level. And that's the kind of things we need to address. That's why we move people around in these educational international programs to understand the world, to build abilities, and to some extent, be capable of producing global answers. And then we talk about intercultural approach. Intercultural approach. Why intercultural? What does it mean intercultural? You have on the screen three different pictures. The first one could be monocultural approach, when you dive into one single culture. For instance, I lived in Paraguay for quite a while, and I understood the culture to some extent. Then I moved to Brazil, and I didn't understand anything. Global answers need more than one cultural experience, more than one place. And sometimes people move to different places. It's a multicultural approach. It's right in the middle of the screen, right? And some people travel the world and visit many different countries, but they collect the experience. They don't mix experience. They are experts, maybe in, like myself, in Paraguay, in Brazil, but there's something common ground. And when you get that common ground, you get intercultural. You see the screen, right? Intercultural approach, and that's why we talk about intercultural skills, is when you're capable of mixing, mingle, and contaminate your own ideas and get new things. And that's quite important in this. task of us. So cultural experience is immersed in a single culture, which is not bad, obviously. It's the beginning of things. Multicultural experience, when you expose yourself to multiple cultures that they coexist in one environment or in one continent, but you don't find the common ground. Intercultural experience and intercultural skills has to do with deep engagement and meaningful exchange between individuals from different cultures. And you foster understanding, learning, and you come up with new answers. We'll talk about this later, but the answers, of course, you give answers in your own terms, in your life, and those answers will spread to produce bigger results. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. So uh, in culture, multicultural, intercultural experience. We've got this global vision. We know that we can have an intercultural experience, but then there are so many cultures that it's difficult to get around. Uh, as I said before, I was an expert in Paraguay. I even learned some of the language, Guarani, and it didn't help me as soon as I moved to Argentina, which was just a few kilometers away. It's impossible to master all the culture. It's impossible to master all the languages. So how can we do intercultural abilities to face any culture? And there's this wonderful book by Erin Meyer, The Cultural Map, that gives us some methodology. I think it's a brilliant methodology. I like it to share with you. Meyer says that there are scales representing key areas of how culture vary along a spectrum from one extreme to the other. These key areas are common to every culture, but the position of every culture of each country is different, and it depends on your own uh, culture. So it has to do with perception, with understanding your own culture first, and from there you can measure how other cultures develop. You can understand better because you understand your own culture to begin with. One of these common scales very suggested, there are quite many, I think, in this book, Mayer uh, talks about 7 or 8 different scales. I just took 3 of them because I think they're quite interesting and some more, some way for example, right? The first one is time schedule, how different cultures live time. Sometimes you find countries, cultures with a very linear sense of time. Time is linear. Life is a sequence of events, one thing after the other. Actually, time is a commodity because you can waste time, you can lose time, you can take advantage of time like a commodity, right? And you stick to schedule, it's very important. And your life is full of deadlines, right? Linear time. And then sometimes you run to other cultures with a very flexible sense of time. This is the famous ahorita. I live in Latin America in so many places, in Colombia and Ecuador, and the ahorita, no? Flexible time. Life is fluid. It's nothing to do with one thing after the other. Many things happen at the same time, and opportunities go over an organization. You can always go a second time around. Nothing is forever. It was quite funny. I had a dinner in Germany this winter. It was a farewell dinner. And apparently I was late. From their point of view, I was late. Because from my point of view, you can never be late to a party. Because a party, you arrive whenever it suits you. Maybe you can be late to a wedding, but not to a party. But I got this feeling that I was getting late over there. And everybody very kindly let me know. It was a matter of culture, right? And it's funny because for other cultures, my own could be linear or flexible. I was working with some Brazilian students this weekend, and I was mad because they were late in the workshop. And for them, it was amazing. Yeah, well, it's holidays, a workshop, or whatever. And from their point of view, my approach was very linear type. And then when I compare myself with other European countries, I see myself like a very flexible culture. So I reflect with all the members of the federation. You know, I'm the director of the federation, we have 10 members at this point, 10 different countries, and I organize them from my point of view. I'm from Spain, so right here, you see my country. And from my point of view, some of the members are very linear time. They really need deadlines, time, one thing after the other. And from my point of view, some other are very flexible. It's nothing to do with deadlines. There's always a second opportunity, and you need to deal with all of them. It's stupid if you get mad. It's just you don't understand. And when you understand, you can build bridges. You can communicate much better. You need to be patient with some of them and maybe be patient with all of them. All of them need to be patient with me, right? With my approach to time. So this is one idea, one of the scales I want to explore. There's another scale I want to explore as well. Has to do with position, with hierarchy. Some societies, some cultures are very egalitarian. The ideal distance between people is low. Organizations are flat. And communication skips hierarchical lines. You can talk to your boss, you can talk to the boss of your boss. There's no problem. It has to do with how you run business, how you run your own family, how you organize your social life, right? Or some other societies are very hierarchical. The ideal distance between people is high. Organizations are multi-layered and fixed. Communications follows hierarchical lines. If you want to talk to your boss, you talk to your boss. You don't go to anybody else. This is very important. And again, from my own experience, in the federation we have this board, which is there's a Mexican person, a Japanese person, an Ecuadorian person from Ecuador, and I notice the difference, how they organize, how they organize the meetings, the reunions. It's very different from the way I would do it. And then I talked to other members of the federation. I remember talking to people from the United States, and it's so difficult. You know this right away, and you don't need to get mad. It's just a matter of understanding the way they need to be considered. It's quite interesting, and it runs in families and businesses, and so when you visit a family, you located in a certain position. And it has nothing to do being in a family in the United States than being a family in Japan. It's nothing to do. The position is quite different. And if you understand this, you will move more comfortably around. And finally, another scale, identity. How do you build your own sense of being? Individual or community? What comes first? I am who I am, individual projects, the myth of self-made man. I did it my way. I remember this song, probably you know it, right? I did it my way. Independence is paramount. And it has some price to be paid. The solitude, maybe. And the icon wings. You need to fly, individual cultures. And sometimes you find different cultures with a very strong sense of community. I am with others. I'm not myself. I belong to this family. I'm the father of, the son of, I belong to this country or whatever, to this clan. It's a collective project. It's not a single project. You do what your family tells you to do, and you live together. Interdependence is there. It's a strong sense of belonging, but at the same time, this is not a strong sense of independence with some prices to be paid as well. And roots may be the icon. Wings on one side and roots. And again, it depends on the different cultures you move. You feel that your own culture has this tendency towards community or towards individual approach. When I live in the United States, I realized how important for me was my family ties, my country, my little town. And we don't move that much around the country. We don't move that much from families, and it was completely different in in the United States. And then I had mm, friends in Latin America, in Mexico, and Japan as well, and the sense of belonging was much stronger. much more. They even had a sense of legacy, not only family. It was something deeper, and for me, it was quite amazing. So it has nothing to do moving to family in the United States and the role you can play over there. Then you move to a family in Japan or Mexico. It's nothing to do. And if you master this kind of skills, you'll feel comfortable because you'll be able to understand a little better, right? So we have been talking about world vision, why we need to understand. We have been talking about cultures, different cultures, and what intercultural means. And we have been talking about different scales within cultures. And now we talk just a little bit about the language, which is the third ingredient, right? World, culture, and language. Of course, we know it's impossible to master all the languages. And let me read this. Speaking a language and understanding a culture are two different things. Sometimes we focus on grammar and vocabulary. Been studying English for years, and then I studied French, and it was all about grammar, spelling, vocabulary, and communication skill has to do with that to some extent, but not that much. You come to think of it. And then we'll get back to Erin Meyer, the cultural map, and this methodology to give us some clues beyond mastering grammar and mastering vocabulary, right? In this case, the scales represent key areas of how language holds, so not only cultures, vary along a spectrum from one extreme to the other. And I choose just two of them. There are quite many, but I choose these two contexts and confrontation because I thought it was quite interesting to share with you. Context. Some languages uh, do have a very low context. People mean what they mean. They are precise and clear. They are sometimes explicit. Messages are expressed at face value, and repetition is appreciated if it helps. I don't understand. Doesn't matter. I'll explain to you again and again. And some other cultures, on the other hand, are they have a very high context. It's full of nuance. Messages are between lines. It's the constant, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And frankly, I don't know what you mean. Coming back to my experience this very weekend, last weekend, I was working with some Brazilian students. And as I told you, I was angry because they were late. And I let them know in a very precise and clear way. And there was shock. They expected a message in a most elegant way, probably. It was very interesting to see the reaction, like low context and high context, full of nuance, or getting to the point. Of course, if you come from a low context language and culture, the other people may always seem ambiguous. You never know what they mean. And when you come from a very high context language, the other people sometimes seems rude to you. Why these people so rude, right? So explicit. Um, to some extent, I play with the members of the federation, whether it's low context or high context. Imagine you talk to people with a high context language, and you do it online, you miss all the body language. It's very difficult to understand. So sometimes it requires more than an email, more than a meeting, more than a webinar to get the message through. And when you meet with people with very low context, it's you go straight to the point. It takes different skills to talk to different people when you take this into consideration, context. And then conflict. It's very interesting. Low confrontation or high confrontation. In low confrontation languages, debate is bad. And you need to be very careful so the other person do not lose face. Very important. Open confrontations, rude, and impacting relationships. And some other cultures can sustain high levels of confrontations. I remember I have family in Colombia, and they came to Spain, and they were shocked. by the level of confrontation we had in our own family. They thought that we were always arguing and discussing and angry. And I thought, not at all, not at all. That's the way it is. It does not impact on relationships. And we think that's honest. And from their point of view, my Colombian family, they think to some extent that we are kind of rude and argumentative. I think they are kind of elusive. I think of them quite the opposite. But then, if it's not with Colombia, but it's with different countries, what if you compare with United States, with Japan, with UK, with Germany, the level of confrontation you're capable of sustaining, or the rules of engagement, you could say, the rules of engagement may change, right? So all these three ideas are intertwined. World vision. How do you see the world? You challenge your perspectives and you keep in mind that our intention is to change things and we meet to face global problems and to come up with global solutions. That's what makes us an educational program. Has to do with culture, right? The different scales in culture are our intercultural approach. It's not that we know about one experience, we want to know about many experiences. And then language. You'll never speak all the language in the world, but maybe you master these skills and it gives you quite a lot of information to understand your context. And the result of this world culture and language produces intercultural skills. Let me mention my source, one of the sources I'm using, because this is not my ideas. It comes from Albino Fantini, and he has this amazing book where you'll find a lot of experiences. He talked and collect experiences from different members of the Federation in this book, Intercultural Communicative Competence in Educational Exchange, multinational exchange approach. A wonderful book. So, after this very quick overview, some do's and don'ts from my own experience and something maybe we could work together in the Federation for all our friends and all our participants. Do's and don'ts when you move in another culture. A step out of your comfort. Well, I thought maybe not comfort, a step out of your privilege zone. Because maybe when we see the world, we see the inequality, the climate change, the pandemic, we realized that we were very lucky. But justice has nothing to do with being lucky, it has to do with different things. So traveling, not to keep your comfort, but to challenge your privilege, to understand how they are built. Do learn the language, try to understand different cultures. There are key ways of saying things that gives you so much information. I think in English, for instance, this amazing word for me, daydreaming. We have nothing like that in Spanish, daydreaming. Perhaps ensoñación. It gives you so much information when you learn how to say thank you, how basic knowledge, and it gets you, it helps you to get integrated. Do ask questions, of course. Show curiosity of interest in the culture by asking questions. Do participate actively. Reflect on your experience. It's not consuming experience. Sometimes we are so much in the market. We are consuming products, experiences, people to some extent. But take your time, reflect, write home about things, and do not go so rush, right? And do build relationships. Keep the conversations going on with some significant people. Even though you are back home, try to keep this conversation and build this relationship to keep the conversation going. It will get your experience much more enriched. Some don'ts from my experiences. Let me check my time. Yeah, avoid making assumptions based on stereotypes. Stereotypes are the truth to some certain extent. It's not 100% the truth to some extent. But when you get to grassroots level, maybe it's nothing there, not that much. Do not isolate yourself. Do not be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you're trying. You have the right to make mistakes. and then you apologize or explain yourself or whatever. Do not compare constantly your home culture with the other host culture. Don't compare constantly. Just get through it, get involved, right? Dive into it. Don't overpack your schedule. Give you time to reflect, to write, to think, right? Do not, this is not an amusement park. You run from one place to another. Just take your time, enjoy yourself, and don't ignore such things. Some do's and don'ts. Maybe we could produce so many others, but these are a few were, I was thinking about to share with you. And then measure impact, KPIs, key performance indicators. And one first thought about it. The results are the multiplication of effort by impact measurement. Result is zero if the impact measurement is zero. Maybe we are moving people around, hundreds of students, maybe thousands. Maybe we are getting involved in so many different countries. But how do we know it works? What's the difference between our proposal and other NGOs? And probably has to do with impact, with things we want to get done. It has to do with this building understanding and building possibilities of finding collective answers. And we need to measure that. And that's difficult to measure the impact. We had one seminar some weeks ago, a few months ago, talking about impact. And this reflection has to do with that as well. Which areas do you measure? We want people to develop some areas, some personal areas, maybe the ability to negotiate, to decision making, to cooperate with others, to solve problems, to do leadership. We want people to grow in that sense. And to what end? Because we want influence their choices, their employment choices, their leisure choices, their customer choices, their lifestyle, the place they live, the social participation. We want to influence their choices so they add these values, these global visions, this global sense to their personal choices. We don't want consumers, we want global citizens that make decisions based on values and on experience they have opportunity to reflect on. And we need to measure that. But how? We measure that. There are tools. And then I get back to Albino Fantini, who has been working with producing these tools for many years, right? Trying to interview people and see if we can measure this impact. That's very relevant in my point of view. And then, of course, at the Federation, we have the Intercultural Exchange certification. And for us, monitoring, evaluation, measures impact are very relevant. And we work on it, we certificate it. We really want to spread our knowledge and our thoughts and get more people involved in this approach of global citizenship and traveling the world. I've been using many different books, some of them in Spanish, but in English. Again, let me mention Albino Fantini, then Erin Meyer, then Richard Lisbeth, the Geography of Thought, and many other things we could mention, probably you know quite a lot as well. Let me stop the screen. And this is it. And now I see all these many people. I'm conscious of. Oh, so nice to see people from Ireland and from France. Bonjour. Bonjour. From Mexico. Buenas tardes. Buenos días. No sabemos. I'm from different places. I'm from Germany as well. So now we can open a little bit the dialogue, your thoughts, your reflection about this. Since I'm so familiar with Cecilia, let's break the ice. Cecilia, what do you think about all this knowledge? And what are your thoughts? Now you live in Ireland and you're from Mexico. That's quite something.
Yeah. No, that's why I'm here. I'm sorry, but for Mexico it would be 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'm afraid Valeria wouldn't be able to join. Thank you, Antonio. I think it was very interesting because there are points that we actually talked to our participants when we do welcome seminars and other seminars, and it's a way of refreshing what we do, and to point out that that's what is so important, that we keep certain features, certain tools at hand, and to refresh our memory about it. It was very interesting to see Albino's work brought into the table, because Albino is one, it's a real pillar of Federation Experiment US, and a good friend of many of our organizations. But I was wondering if you could talk to him, and if you have any insight, how many changes he has seen since he made that, he wrote that last book. Or if you haven't, of course, it will be something interesting to hear in the future.
Yeah, the tools need so upshifting and updating. And I know has stopped to some extent working this updated. So it's something we need to do for ourselves. I was talking to him about these tools, and he sent me this version, and I think we can do some homework. We can improve these tools to measure the impact, and to share these tools with the Federation, with the different members of the Federation. Would be great to produce global results. Imagine we run the same interview to some specific participants all over the Federation, and then we produce some global info, global impact report. It would be great. Let me ask Mary Martin. That's so nice to see you, Mary. Tell us about this. Say hello. Yes, say something. Anything goes. And
Good afternoon. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's lovely to see everybody. Very interesting presentation.
You can develop your thought.
I don't want to be hogging this now. You've put me in the spot.
Do you think it's working? Our programs are working? Do you think we need to measure impact, or do you need to do some more reflection about it? What's your thoughts about it?
I suppose from a finance perspective, I definitely think that perhaps, yes, they would need a little bit more work with regard to the educational value and impact. Then I suppose I would have to bow down to the expertise of the study abroad department. But from I suppose me personally, do we need to reflect on our impact? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I feel for all reasons, I suppose from a finance perspective, it would be in terms of funding and fundraising. In the future, we need to be able to measure our outputs. I feel at the moment it's difficult. It is very difficult to measure that in a way that's explainable to the wider community, to our stakeholders.
Yeah, wonderful reflection. In a way that we can share and make a point out of it, to make it clear. That's a challenge, but I think it makes a difference between us, the Federation, and many other NGOs. I think something we need to think about it. Let me ask Annabelle. Bonjour, madame. Je t'en prie. Qu'est-ce que tu penses?
Hello.
Hello. What do you think when people go to France, with students from all over the world get to France? What's their impression? What kind of problems they run into?
When they are welcomed in families, for example, there's always a cultural shock. We prepare them a little bit with
much wine.
Yes. No, because they're minors.
Yeah.
But no, it's always the same. Even when we send French young people outside, they all get through the same phases. It's not at the same time, maybe, but they all get through these phases. And it's very important to prepare them about that.
Right.
And I really liked the beginning of the presentation when you just remind us even the do's and don'ts. But at the very beginning, I was thinking maybe myself when I travel, I'm not so prepared for the cultural shock.
Yeah.
And for minding my own perspectives and maybe preparing myself to be more open. So it was really helpful, even for me. And it gave me a lot of ideas, even to communicate, to accompany on social media, for example, the young people when they plan to travel, maybe to think about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we don't communicate about that, never.
Yeah, it's so important for me to train people when they travel abroad, to tell them these little kind of things. Maybe you're gonna face shock. You know, I have this experience of training people from Europe to Latin America, right? And they always get angry because ahorita. Oh, come on. Maybe there are more things than that. And the other way around, when they come, some people come here to Spain, depending on from where, but when they come from Colombia, for instance, from Brazil, they think us to be so rude because we speak so loud. And I don't understand this family. And it's, if you have these keys, you can solve problems easily.
Yeah.
It has to do with perspective. It has to do with telling them beforehand. And then once they are involved in the families, when you explain your country, it changes so much. If you explain your country to a German person, to a French person, to a Ecuadorian person, to a Japanese person, it's the same country for you, but it's so different from their different point of view.
Yeah.
So when you accompany people, we need to really adjust to different profiles, I think. Let's talk up with Germany. This Darinka experiment Germany. Oh, when you listen a German person being on time, you really believe it. They are on time. But when you listen an Italian people being on time, you think that this is not true. All these are prejudices, right?
Yeah, there are a lot. Yeah. Well, thanks for giving the opportunity. Yes. So I still would say this is our stereotypes or prejudices about Germans that still exist, but still there are differences between German people. For example, I'm German and I'm not on time most of the time, like a delay. Yeah. So yeah, but still they exist, and I mean some of them are there because of different purposes, you know, because there are a lot of people that are punctual, that are correct, that are
it's more than just the stereotype, right? It's how do you think what time is all about. And for us in Europe, I think in Europe, time is a commodity. You waste time, you spend time in a sense that for many other cultures, it's completely amazing. I've worked in different parts in Morocco, for instance, or in Mozambique, and time is completely different. Time is circular, goes back again and again. There's no rush. Of course, there are stereotypes, but there's some truth in it, and it's funny to work with it. And then you mentioned you can apply this to your own country. Sometimes I take Spain, people from North Spain and people from South Spain, and sometimes I apply the same, right? It's not always true, but there's something there that we can explore, right?
Yeah.
Caroline from Ireland.
Yes, I'm also German, so I thought
really?
it was really
that's
interesting to hear about
a perfect
that.
mixture. This is the person we need to talk to.
And yeah, and just like Darinka, I'm not well. I'm getting better now, even though I'm in Ireland. It should be the opposite, but I used to be late for everything when I was younger. But I think it's more than just, you know, oh, in Germany you should be on time. I think it's it depends on the situation. For some things you can be late. I think it's completely fine that, you know, you were a bit late for that party, unless people were waiting to order dinner, you know, for everyone to be there, then it's a bit different, you know, and sometimes it's about respect. Like, I don't want anyone to wait for me. So for certain things, you know, you should really try to be on time, but other things, it's fine to be late. But I think it's important that both parties understand, is this a situation where it's okay to be late and flexible, you know, like we Germans, we can be flexible, but we might have to agree on being flexible beforehand.
Yeah,
Maybe.
let me
I don't know. Maybe that's
talking
I
about you.
totally agree.
Talking about it. When you're late, you have the same value as being on time. That's why you think you're late, right? When I arrived to Germany, I didn't even think I was late. I discovered I was late once I was there. But if you think you're late, it's because you apply the rule. And by the rule, you just don't follow in that sense.
Yeah.
The point is that you don't even think you're late. Because for you, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the difference. That's the difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's quite something, because you get angry with people. Or maybe impatient with people. Or maybe people think you are rude with them. And it's not a matter of moving in the same scale. It's just different scale. And it has to do with time, which is quite a stereotype. But it has to do with hierarchy, for instance. What's your role in the family? When you sit at the dinner table, where do you sit? And who's where? And who, I don't know, who distribute the food? And when can you step out of the dining room? And hierarchy, for instance. It's very interesting. And I know people really run into troubles. When I was in United States, I was amazing, because for me, that was a chaos. The children, adults, it was so different than being in Japan, for instance. It was always different. It was different. And that's the point, to realize that it's a matter of perspective as well, right? Cecilia. You see, Cecilia?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that it's very interesting. Like, sorry, my phone. Having Caroline and Darinka here in the call, it's very interesting, because we have had the opportunity to work with our Mexican students coming to Ireland or going to Germany, and we always try in our orientations to talk a lot about this. And it has worked very well, for example, with Caroline sending the Irish volunteers to Mexico, that they get to know the coordinator online before they land in Mexico. And there's kind of this familiarity. So I think we have tried as organizations to get as much information from our partners to build up this trust and friendship before our students land. So it's also something that we have to keep in mind. All the theory, it's perfect. We learn a lot, we can apply it, but we have to add the human element. And when we have flexible people that are trying to do this, because I know Caroline stays till late working with the volunteers to join a Mexican time difference office. So that's very appreciated. So it's good to see you here, girls. It's it's lovely. Thanks. Thank you for taking care of our students so well, Darinka.
By the way, thank you for and get them back.
Very welcome.
Get them back. Let me ask Shannon from Ireland. Give us your thoughts. If I go to Ireland, what's going to happen to me?
I'm sure you'll pick up with my accent. I'm not actually Irish.
Oh, great! Great! We made it again. So tell us about Ireland from your point of view. Where are you from?
I'm South African.
What you say? Great.
Yeah, so I come from a country that, I mean, we're known as the Rainbow Nation. There's so many different cultures in our country, and diversities and ethnic backgrounds. And it's very hard to pinpoint South Africa when there's so many differences in it. So it's always, so stereotypes has always been a thing for myself. in a stance where it was hard to pinpoint stereotypes in South Africa because of the cultural, there's so many vast differences in the country. So there was a sense when moving to Ireland where I was not faced with stereotypes a lot more, but it was, you know, seeing differences in culture a lot more in something that's still totally different than what I'm from, even though there's so many cultural differences in the country I am from. So, I mean, with Ireland, for example, when it comes to time, the one thing is South Africans are very Germanic, you know, especially with the Dutch cooperation and all of that stuff within it. So I did, you know, find that Irish people are very time conscious, but things are also not urgent, not have to be done now. Things are more prioritized, where in South African culture, when you get a task, you get it done. Where Irish culture, things are prioritized in accordance to priority rather than to we need to get it done. If that makes sense. I know. Also, one of the biggest, one of the biggest things that stood out to me in your presentation was just because you speak the language doesn't mean you understand the culture.
Not at all.
And I took that to myself because I'm a native English speaker. But still moving to Ireland where native English speakers is still a complete different culture and things like that. So I think that's also something that I took on board, never mind the fact that we, you know, preach to our students French, German, Spanish, language. It's also important to know just because you understand the language does not mean you understand the culture. I thought that was the biggest highlights I took from your presentation.
Yeah, just imagine I speak Spanish and Cecilia speaks Spanish, and we need to be careful. When I talk to my family in Colombia, I need to be careful because you take for granted so many things, and you may be running into misunderstandings. And just imagine when I communicate myself in English, it's not my language, it's not my mother tongue. So somehow I produce my Spanish thought into English words, and sometimes it don't work. It doesn't work. As simple as that. It is not a matter of grammar or vocabulary. Of course, grammar and vocabulary helps, but understanding what's behind it really helps. And let our students or participants understanding what's behind our culture. It's difficult, but that's the point. That's the point. So because when we have that common ground, we can come up with common solutions, which is the final impact of what we want. Not only moving people around, but getting conscious of different problems. That's something interesting. So many people from Ireland that are not from Ireland, actually, but it's funny. Except Mary, she's from Ireland. Valeria, tell me you are not from Ireland either.
No, I'm from Brazil.
Oh, it's amazing. What happened in Ireland? Cecilia is in Ireland. She's not in Ireland. Shannon, and then
and we have one more. Petra is also from Croatia. So we are a very multicultural team.
Yeah, that's amazing. You should be delivering the next webinar from your own experience. South Africa and so many different places. Valeria, where are you from?
I'm from Brazil, from São Paulo.
Ah, great.
Yes, I have been living in Ireland for 5 years now. And I can tell you that it's a lot of difference in regards to punctuality, our idea of communication. I think in Brazil, it's very difficult to be direct. We have problems to say no directly. Yes. So we try to work more in the context, what we are talking. And regarding, for example, you're talking about punctuality. As a Brazilian, I can assess that we have the same mentality. We try to be punctual, but I think we are more flexible in this regard. Because, for example, in São Paulo, it's a big city. We have traffic, we have everything. We always try to be on time. But if we are not there on time, we are more flexible. I think we have lots in common here with the Irish culture. I think both of us, we try to be very polite in what we are saying. We try to avoid conflicts. I think, I don't know if it's just my opinion, but I see these similarities in our way to communicate. I don't know. I think if you want to talk really with the Irish one, it's Therese, Mary, Aideen.
Yeah, there's an opportunity for the Irish team to explain a few things among us.
Yeah.
It's funny, the amount of conflict people can sustain. It's amazing. I've been working with Japanese people, and sometimes I wonder why are always smiling. They're always smiling. This can be true. Something is behind. They're always. It's impossible to run into a problem, but there are problems. There are conflicts behind. And but first you don't notice because they are smiling all the time, and you may think they are pretending. There's something wrong. No, it's nothing wrong. It's a different approach to how you handle conflict. And in Spain, we go face to face. But then when I see the Americans, I think, my God, that's face to face. That has nothing to do with me. I mean, I wouldn't say that to anybody. The concept of losing face, for instance, so important in some cultures when you can't, if your family, your father, your host father loses face because something you did, it's so relevant and you don't even notice. But it's completely different in another country, right? It's so funny. Petra, the last one. We have Brazil, South Africa. We've got
Now,
a native one, and we have a German, and now we have Petra.
now to Croatia. Yeah,
Croatia.
there are a lot of differences, but what I can say, not to repeat what my colleagues already said, is that we think, I would speak on behalf of everyone, that we think firstly, like working with students, working with such you know, very difficult and vulnerable group, that we have to focus on putting effort in working as a team and understanding these cultural differences, language differences, and, you know, like communication differences between each other. And we are really a good example of that, I think, in Federation, but also in IFS, because we are multicultural in our office, and we try to, let's say, put in practice everything, or to try everything, to make a small trial in the office to see how that will work with students. And I think that's very very important and very valuable, because then once students arrive to the country, we know how to explain them better why something is happening, how to resolve some issue. We can provide them with a better support, because we are also in a position of having that different perspectives, different experiences around. And then we can, you know, like from our own point, not just the support team, but like everyone as a team, we can assist them. And also when they are on arrival or departure, when we have orientations with students, we can say, look, this is something that happened to me when I was your age, or when I was in that place, or this happened to us when we moved to Ireland. Or you know, like Irish people, for instance, Therese, Mary, they can explain to students how is to, you know, to have a better socialization in the community, how to get involved more. So I think that each of us can give some input to that students to make their stay easier, to help them to, you know, to really enjoy the experience as much as possible, and also to learn like maximum out of this experience.
Yes, and you say something very important. Multicultural is not the same as intercultural, right? Multicultural, you know, we are from different countries and we're the result. No, intercultural, we're something completely new, unique, because you people, in this case, Ireland, Croatia, South Africa, Germany, it's completely different. It's completely unique, because otherwise it's just collecting ideas. Look at this. We are from different places. No, now we are from a common ground. And that's something so amazing to show students or participants, that something new arrives. And it's different every time because the mixture is different. And I think that's one of the points of being an experimenter, right? To go around the world and produce something completely new and useful in order to change the way things are going. Thank you so much. This is just a webinar. This is just the beginning of a conversation. I hope you enjoy your summer. I gather it's busy and hectic, all these things happening at the same time. And the webinar is being recorded and will be kept in YouTube. Thank you for your participation in the dialogue, and we keep on talking. This is the point of being a community of practitioners, okay? I hope to see you again probably in October. Not ready yet, but probably in October. Okay. Thank you for joining.
Antonio.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.